Irish guy, and is everyone in tears? Did you all spend the weekend wiping your snot off the kitchen table after England lost the World Cup final? Or did anyone actually know it was on? I didn't. I was watching The Lion King. But listen, the Premier League Game Week 2 is over, and lads, let's just see how nutty every match was. Oh, by the way, if you're new, hit that subscribe button, you toasty people. Right, let's go. Tottenham 2, Man United 0. Tottenham are class. I'm sorry. I know I probably shouldn't say this. I know this probably sounds about as mental as if I were to tell you that one day I think Bugs Bunny will marry my mum. But Tottenham, especially in that second half against Manchester United, that was the prettiest football I've seen them play for a solid 5 years. I think Tottenham have learned by now that European serial winning coaches don't suit them. What they need is a low-key coach who plays attractive football. Like in the past, Martin Jol, Mauricio Pochettino. It's just when they aim too high for elite managers who demand the best, again, no, that doesn't work out. Especially not when they're then lumbered with a fat Danny Rose. Expectations were so low for Spurs this year. People have been sneering at the appointment of Ange Postecoglou. And sure, he's an Aussie coach who came from the Scottish leagues. Sure, he looks a bit like if you shave Santa Claus. Yes, of all the current Premier League managers, he would be one of my first picks if I was going to cast a live-action theatre production of Shrek. But put some respect on his name. People think this guy just burst onto the scene inside the last 5 months. What blows my mind is that no, he was actually managing against Manchester United when they were reigning treble winners. When Man United opted out of the FA Cup in 2000 to participate in the Club World Cup, Sir Alex Ferguson was literally pitting his wits against Postecoglou, who back then was a 35-year-old manager of South Melbourne. It is mental. I bet some ignorant journalists spent this week asking Ange,
oh, is this a dream come true for you to finally be able to coach against Manchester United?
Lads, no, he was literally once upon a time trying to figure out the blueprint of how to stop a strike force of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Andy Cole. He was managing against Manchester United 4 years before Garnacho was born, back when his mum was probably still at school. Imagine going all the way back to that year 2000. It was so long ago, it was before the first Harry Potter film. Imagine going back to that year and telling Postecoglou that yes, the next time you would manage against Manchester United would be in the Premier League, but in 23 years, and Steve McLaren would still be sitting on the coach's bench. He would have assumed that McLaren would have just spent over 20 years just, well, making the Manchester United boss's tea. But has a manager ever had such a long gap in between coaching against Manchester United? Sure, that Man United starting 11 in 2000 was weak, featuring Jonathan Greening, Ronnie Wallwork, and Johan Cruyff's son, but some Manchester United fans would probably have preferred that weak, insipid midfield to the one they got on Saturday, because the trio of Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, and Mason Mount, 6 Champions Leagues between them, oh, that did not work. Lads, I backed Mount to succeed at Old Trafford, but so far, he has been so limp, lifeless, had all the impact of a water balloon filled up milk. Bruno Fernandes missed a sitter in front of goal and chose to spend the rest of the match squabbling with the ref. Manchester United were seriously poor. The likes of Anthony and Garnacho, those two mega skillsters on the wing. I mean, especially Anthony. He looks like he belongs in an episode of the F2, knocking back milkshakes with Jeremy Lynch as they brag about their Lamborghinis whilst doing pointless keepy-uppies while standing on their heads. But as an actual Premier League star with end product, he is proving to be what Memphis Depay was at Old Trafford. A flash, cocky star from the Eredivisie who absolutely failed in the Prem. But Tottenham are great, and I'm so happy for Papi Sarr. He was the scapegoat of that awful Christian Stellini tenure in the spring, who for some reason went to 4 at the back for a trip to Newcastle. Yeah, he found himself 5-0 down after 20 minutes and dragged poor old Sarr, a fella barely out of his teens, off that pitch after 23 minutes. That could have finished him off. That could have destroyed this young Frenchman's confidence forever. That screenshot of him being substituted after 23 minutes of a Premier League match, with his team losing by 5. What, you think his mum would have stuck that one on the fridge? He probably spent that entire evening crying down the phone to his gran. I think replacing him with Davinson Sanchez so early into the match was reckless. You don't do that to a 20-year-old child, and I'm so glad that this evil Italian goblin was quickly axed by Spurs just hours after the match, because Sarr just paid the price for his manager's own stupidity. So I was happy to see him recover and actually score the opening goal against Manchester United. That will make this former Mets midfielder feel like a king, as opposed to that lonely afternoon in April where he probably felt like jumping into a bear pit at the zoo. But again, this 4-2-3-1 Spurs formation, that was smooth. Gone are the nasty days of 3 centre halves at the back, and I have to say I was so impressed by the Tottenham full backs. I was a little confused why, now that they've gone back to 4 at the back, why Sergio Reguilon is still being treated like a leper who stinks of fish. But I've got to say, I've not been more impressed by a doggy since I watched Scooby-Doo. Both he and Pedro Porro were nightmares for Erik ten Hag on the Tottenham flanks, and James Maddison looked effortlessly peerless, strolling through the midfield with absolute composure and swagger. Having him in that number 10 role in the Spurs midfield, he immediately adds the creativity they've been lacking for years. Honestly, he's going to be one of the signings of the season. Honestly, Spurs were class. Wolves won, Brighton 4. I told you all. I predicted Wolverhampton Wanderers to finish bottom of the Premier League, and that's when they had an ex-Real Madrid boss in charge. Seeing them employ some weaselly little man who used to make the tea at Anfield. Oh, I'm even more convinced of it. Gary O'Neill is so unspectacular. He is such a Hufflepuff. Then they began the season by battling Manchester United all the way at Old Trafford. They had 23 shots all night. They should have had a last-minute penalty to leave the ground with a point. And people on Twitter were using that as proof that I was wrong.
Oh, look at Wolves now, Irish guy! Irish guy does it again!
I'm sorry, but no. Even if they had scored a last-minute penalty at Old Trafford to leave with a draw. Oh, and by the way, does anyone really have confidence in any of the Wolves players to score a penalty? No, they'd have probably stuck it over the bar. But even if they had left Old Trafford with a point on the opening day, what, does that guarantee survival and prove that I was wrong? No, because back in August 2007, first day of the season, Reading ground out a 0-0 draw at Manchester United, went on to finish 18th. The following year, in August 2008, Newcastle nicked a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford on the opening day of the season, and went on to finish 18th. Despite a spirited start at Old Trafford, Wolves are going down. This was absolutely hideous. Conceding 4 at home to Brighton. I have to say that Brighton keep amazing me. They keep selling their players, losing their managers, and they don't get any worse. If anything, they just get better. Para Matoma absolutely chewed this Wolves backline for breakfast. And I'm sorry, but whatever Brighton scout discovered him playing for Kawasaki Frontale, give yourself a major pat on the back. Even sending him on loan to Belgium for a year was probably unnecessary because this guy is frighteningly top class. He's a late bloomer too. The guy was playing university football in Japan up until he was 22. In 2018, he was literally doing a major in PE. This guy was literally on his way to being a depressed, middle-aged guy who just teaches a bunch of snot-nosed brats on how to play volleyball in between geography and maths before accidentally walking on them in the shower. Or was that just my PE coach? Honestly, even now I still have nightmares about Sean. But lads, even Solly March is now scoring goals under De Zerbi. I mean, before the Italian took charge, this guy looked about as dangerous in front of goal as a crippled chicken. And a word on Julio Enciso. I'm gonna call it. He's 19 years old and already an absolutely sizzling playmaker every time I watch him. First of all, last season he belted in 2 goal of the season contenders against Chelsea and Man City. He is special, and I'm telling you, he's going to be the best Paraguayan to ever play in the Premier League. And to be fair, his only real competition were Miggy Almiron and Rocky Santa Cruz. But can you imagine if he wasn't South American and was instead born in Grimsby? The English media would be fawning over him so much, you'd swear he was related to the Queen. Honestly, Man City could do worse than sign him now. Aston Villa 4, Everton 0. Play the clip.
They look a bit more like Burnley of 2019. Ugly, unfashionable Sean Dyche football, but they'll have their stuff together. Will rarely spend any time in the relegation zone at all. Just another season of mediocrity. I am so assured of how comfortable it will be for Everton. For every game week they spend inside the bottom 3, I will empty a keg of milk all over my face.
It's not over yet, okay? Palace have to play Arsenal tonight. The game week is not officially over. I'll do it in tomorrow's vid. Yay! Lads, Sean Dyche is obsessed with Michael Keane. I have no idea why. Yes, this was a guy who used to share a dressing room with Paul Pogba. But I would imagine when he was at Manchester United, he was always seen as just an ordinary, boring centre-half who was about as exciting as a poisoned egg pie. I realised that Dyche had him for 2 years at Burnley. But that was 6 years ago. Yes, getting the chance to pick an Everton centre-back pairing exclusively of ex-Burnley centre-backs, uncompromising, ugly warthogs who look like they probably eat their own poo. Actually, that's not fair. James Tarkovsky is probably a housewife's favourite compared to Keane, whose face looks like the back of a cereal box. But this was hideous. Absolutely appalling. Everton are now bottom of the Premier League for the first time in 13 years. And I said they would go an entire season without being in the bottom 3. You can't make this up. They have yet to score a single goal this season. Come on, everyone, get it together. I don't have to pour milk on my face every single week. I just know tomorrow I'm going to stink of Weetabix all day. And every one of that back 4 at Villa Park, absolutely atrocious defending. This isn't Dyche ball. Sean Dyche teams are supposed to be defensively resolute and solid, but this was about as solid as elephant sick. We all know how Everton fans chase Sam Allardyce out of town, even after helping them finish 8th in the league. It's just he plays a style of football that's about as appetizing as sharing a bowl of spaghetti with a skunk. But this, I just know there'll be some Everton fans absolutely stamping their feet and screaming for Sean to get the sack. Come on, they were playing against a wounded Villa team who had just conceded 5 at Newcastle, and yet Everton barely laid a glove on them all match. I just know there will be some Everton fans who would probably be willing to drink a Capri Sun out of their grandma's belly button to just get Graham Potter to the club. Honestly, lads, I'm going to say this. After Dyche unconvincingly scrambled you to survival at the end of the season, this is a club who couldn't guarantee giving Marcelo Bielsa what he wanted last November when he interviewed for the job. But I don't care. They should have gone out there and appointed Brendan Rodgers. Because it doesn't matter if Dyche succeeds or not. Everton fans want to see pretty football in their new spaceship of a ground. Diet just will not do. Great win for Villa though. Although weirdly, this is probably Luca Digne's last game in a Villa shirt. He is about to be loaned out to Nice. I think he was actually getting personally asked by Eddie Howe to join him at Newcastle 18 months ago, and he said no. Yeah, when he's unveiled at the Nice training ground, and you can see Barkley was ear carved into the canteen wall next to a puddle of dried Scouse wee on the floor, he will quickly realise he made the wrong choice. Man City 1, Newcastle 0. This game was billed as something that was going to be special. After Newcastle absolutely obliterated Aston Villa on the opening day, people were always talking up this match at the Etihad as a title clash. Yeah, clearly everybody had gotten carried away with watching Newcastle's Amazon doc, because this 8 p.m. Saturday night kickoff had such a huge build-up, you'd swear it was the finale of Game of Thrones. Yeah, it turned out to be just as much an anticlimax, because the reality was that this was such an utterly wretched game. Just a 90-minute snooze fest. I feel sorry for the elderly supporters who tried to stay awake and watch this match. I can almost guarantee that after 9 o'clock, there will probably be thousands of pensioners worldwide slumped in their armchairs with a bowl of porridge melting on their lap. It was boring. Just an hour and a half of Man City controlling possession and Phil Foden dominating from a central position. But yeah, people thought that Man City were vulnerable after playing a Super Cup match midweek, whilst the Newcastle players had their feet up, eating ice cream and watching Hollyoaks with their wives. But no, forget tiredness, forget weary legs. Pep almost added insult to injury by not making a single sub. West Ham 3, Chelsea 1. Dreadful, absolutely hideous. Chelsea. You look Chelsea under Mauricio Pochettino just slumped to defeat against a side captained by a proven cat kicker. Honestly, can I just say how quickly some people forget? It was only last year people were debating whether or not Kurt Zuma should be sacked by the club. This is a quality French centre back, yes, but do you not want to give the captain's armband to somebody who doesn't have a sick obsession with Tom and Jerry? I wouldn't be surprised if Kurt is constantly daydreaming about shoving 12 kittens in an oven. He's the feline version of Cruella de Vil. Even his own socks are probably made from kitty wool. But make no mistake about it, Chelsea should have won this match. Yes, West Ham got off to a perfect start when their very own version of a mini David Beckham swings in a corner kick on his debut for Naif Aguerd to head the ball into the net. By then, Chelsea come back into the match. People have written off Raheem Sterling for being a spented, pasted Teletubby, just a modern day Jordan Ibe, someone who now belongs sitting at home, smoking on a pipe and tucking into a shepherd's pie by himself. But here, especially in that first half, he ran the West Ham defence ragged, and then Carney Chukwuemeka smacks in a brilliant equaliser before Chelsea win a penalty before half time. And here's the problem. They don't have a single recognised penalty taker in the squad. Nobody. Not a single Chelsea player looks natural when trying to take a spot kick. Honestly, what Pochettino would do for even a Brian Mbemo, because Enzo, he tried his best Jorginho impression by doing that run up where you look like you got Capu in your shorts, but it was just a limp, scuffed effort that Areola saved. I want to say, by the way, Enzo Fernandez, after making Jamie Carragher purr against Liverpool, he was absolutely appalling at West Ham. He's not a £100 million midfielder. He's not. These monster price tags try and convince us into believing that these players are world class, but he's not. He's a £40 million midfielder. I mean, well, why not? Bruno Guimaraes was sold to Newcastle for £35 million. Liverpool signed Alexis McAllister from Brighton for £40 million. Lucas Paqueta was a similar price tag when he joined West Ham. Enzo is in that caliber of footballer. I mean, for £100 million, I'd be expecting the modern Fabregas, but he's nothing of the sort. It's almost unfair of us all to expect this World Cup winner to be elite just because Chelsea overpaid. That's not his fault. It's just Todd Bowley choosing to drink crazy juice for a day. But he was poor against West Ham, sloppy balls, pretty useless in possession. And speaking of which, the other £100 million midfielder on the pitch had a nightmare debut. Moise Caicedo is another one. He's a midfielder who does the basics well. That nobody should ever be paying £100 million for a bloke who just does the basics. For that sort of money, you'd want to be signing special players. But this guy, he's just a modern day Czech Tiote. Rest his soul. A quality defensive midfielder, yes. What a destroyer. Well, not worth 100 mil. And yeah, he gave away a stupid penalty in his debut. And Liverpool fans probably watched this cameo and thought, what was all the fuss about? Liverpool 3, Bournemouth 1. When that final whistle blew on Saturday afternoon, I think Liverpool fans would have puffed a huge sigh of relief because they began this match looking like a bunch of drunken elves with feet made of chocolate pie. First, Jadon Anthony scores for Bournemouth after a minute, only for it to be disallowed for offside. Then a minute later, Liverpool have another mix-up at the back, and Antoine Semenyo sweeps in a Bournemouth goal. In that moment, watching this car crash defending at the back, it honestly looked like Liverpool were going to have an afternoon from hell. It was such a horrible start. A bit like turning up to watch a comedian on stage, and in the opening minutes, he just nervously vomits on the floor. Yeah, as an audience member sitting in the front row, you were then probably gearing up for an evening that was going to be about as much fun as having a shower with your dad. But to be fair, Liverpool got their act together. Luis Diaz smacks in an acrobatic equaliser. Mo Salah misses another penalty against Bournemouth, but stuck away the rebound nonetheless. And then Alexis McAllister on his home debut is sent off after 58 minutes for a soft soft foul. But Diogo Jota scores a third, Dominic Solisboy was man of the match, and new Japanese signing Wataru Endo, he came on for his debut. I would imagine after a frantic week, that poor old fella probably collapsed in the dressing room after the match due to sheer exhaustion. We have seen players need time to adjust to Jurgen Klopp's demands of how to play football. This guy's had 0 preseason with Liverpool, and he's had what, 1 training session this week, and had to come on to play half an hour in a 4-4-1. Klopp said it himself. Endo had no clue what to do. He'd barely slept in the previous 2 nights, so honestly, been chucked onto that pitch, and for half an hour, had to play against a team who had more players on the pitch? Honestly, fair play, Endo. Nottingham Forest 2, Sheffield United 1. Forget the match. Am I the only one who often finds himself confused with Morgan Gibbs White when I'm tired? This was a relegation scrap between Nottingham Forest and Sheffield United. Maybe it's because I've tipped both these teams to get relegated alongside Wolves, but I often have to remind myself on Friday night that Wolves were not playing. Because lads, I know Gibbs White is the best player at Forest. I know who he plays for when I'm not tired. But because he's played for Wolves and Sheffield United, and I've tipped all 3 to go down, then I don't know, when I am sleepy, I sort of have to remind myself who his current club is. Honestly, there was a point on Friday night where I thought, doesn't he play for Sheffield United? Oh, no, he plays for Wolves. No, he's Forest. Because I think all 3 clubs are such an identical, perilous situation. Anyway, this is a game where a point would have suited neither club, and I'm sorry. I know it's stupid to say that in August, on the 2nd game week of the year, but these 2 clubs are destined for the drop, and I wasn't impressed by either side in this game. Taiwo Wani nods in a Serge Aurier cross after just 3 minutes. Fine, go on then. Kick on and dominate the match. But they let the Blades back in. Gustav Hammer spanks in a debut wonder goal at the start of the second half, and then it was anybody's game. Forest were lucky that in the final minute, Aurier whips in another dream superb cross, and this time it's headed home by the super sub Chris Wood. But honestly, both these teams are going down. Fulham 0, Brentford 3. How do Brentford keep doing this without Ivan Toney? Brentford have had a weird start of the season because last week they played against a Tottenham team without Harry Kane, and here no Mitro for Fulham, and they themselves no Toney. It's like they're playing against everyone who's lost their star centre forward. But again, yeah, another brilliant win for Brentford. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of the game week this week? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give a like, subscribe as always. I'll talk to you in a while.